Now, intervals are normally described by two things. First, their quality, and second, their number. Now, the number is the easier part to explain. It's simply the distance between the alphabetical notes. For example, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. That's the musical alphabet, right? If we're starting at C, C is 1, and if we're going to D, which is the second degree of the scale, then we'll describe the interval as a second. If we're going to E, then E is the third, so that is a third, and so on. And you can keep going, you can even go past 7. If you go C to C, that's an octave, or you could go 2 octaves or somewhere in between, and that's where you get numbers like ninth, etc. Going through the C major scale, C to C is a unison, we've made no difference. C to D, second, C, E is a third, C, F is a fourth, C, G is a fifth, C, A is a sixth, C, B is a seventh, C, C is an octave, D is a ninth, C, D is a tenth, C, F is an 11th, C, G is a 12th. God, that's getting really high. Another thing you can do with intervals larger than 8 is we can call them a compound. So say you've got that ninth there, C to high D. Well, C to D in the lower octave is a second, but because we've got an extra octave, we can call it a compound second. So that's either a ninth or a compound second. So that's the number bit. That's pretty easy to explain. What's less easy to explain is the quality. Now, we can describe the quality of a note using several different terms. Major and minor, which we might be familiar with already, as well as the concept of being perfect, diminished, or augmented. Those are the 5 qualities an interval could have. We may already be familiar with the concept of major and minor chords. The same kind of applies to intervals as well. Major means big, minor meaning small. Now, it just so happens that the connotations of major intervals are generally much happier than the connotations of those of minor intervals. So sometimes we can think of major as happy and minor as sad. Minor keys will, for example, contain smaller intervals than major keys, and the smaller intervals are what makes the mode feel sad. When we go from this C to this D, we have a choice of either going C to D or C to D flat. We could also go D sharp, but for the time being we're going to ignore that and say that it's actually an E flat. It just makes life a lot simpler. So for now we only have the 2 options of C to D or C to D flat. Well, the D flat is the smaller of the intervals, only going up 1 fret. So that is the minor second. And the D is a major second. Going up to E, again we have E or E flat. The E flat is the smaller of the intervals because it's only going up 3 frets, so that's the minor third, whereas the E is a major third because it's the bigger gap, 4 frets. This major and minor thing takes a little break as we get to the 4th and 5th. We've got F, F flat, but F flat's an E, so we don't really say F flat, we just say E. It just makes things a lot more simple. But we could have an F sharp. However, with G, a G flat is also an F sharp, so those two share the same flat or sharp, the accidental. And then once we go past G, we get to A, which could have A or A flat, and then B, which can be B or B flat, and so on and so forth. So A, you can have a major 6th with an A natural, or A flat is a minor 6th, B, major 7th, or B flat, minor 7th. But that F and G in the middle there, they have one accidental to share between them, that F sharp, G flat. And so, because of this, we generally say that when an F is a normal F, it's a perfect 4th, and when G is a normal G, then it's a perfect 5th. These intervals don't really have a major or minor alternative, because either if you go down from the F to an E, it's more interpretable as a third. And then if you go above a G, it's more interpreted as a sixth. So G and F, they kind of are a neutral playing field, so they can be perfect. This F sharp / G flat, therefore, depending on which one it is, it can either be an augmented fourth, because it's been raised, but it's still an F sharp. Or if we're calling it a G flat, then it's a diminished fifth, because the G has been lowered. Perfect intervals also extend to the octave and the unison as well. You can have a perfect unison and a perfect octave. C, 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 C. However, these can be augmented or diminished as well. You could have an augmented unison, which is C to C sharp, because the note is the same, it's still a unison. Oh, sorry, the letter is the same, so it's still a unison, but we've raised it, so it's augmented. We could have a diminished octave, C to C flat, although it's generally more commonly referred to as a B, so the diminished octave doesn't really come up, it's more a major seventh. You can augment major and minor intervals as well. For example, when I said earlier that we were going to ignore D sharp, well, if that's a D sharp, well, the D makes it a second, and so it's an augmented second. D sharp, augmented second.